3 years ago, the IT-BPM industry set a lofty target of revenues hitting $59 billion and employing 2.5 million people by 2028. Is it still on track, or is it time to downgrade expectations? Let's ask our next guest, Ascendion's Karthik Krishnamurthy. Karthik, thank you so much for joining us. Welcome to Market Edge.
Such a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
So, Karthik, I understand that you were here a few weeks ago at the IBPAP 2025 summit. What sort of conversations were heads and were executives having about the industry here, the competitive environment outside?
Well, it was a wonderful event. It was my first time at the event. We had, I think, over 1,000 participants, and sort of lots of conversations around the broader opportunities, specifically in artificial intelligence. The single biggest takeaway that I had coming out of that event was that the Manila talent ecosystem, the Filipino talent ecosystem, is actually more than ready to take on the responsibility of building an artificial and AI-based hub in the Philippines and serve global demand. And there were three sort of reasons that drove that for me. One was the realization that the Philippine demographic is a fairly young demographic, as you know, median age of about 25, 26. A lot of focus that I saw in the conversations there around opportunity for investing in AI innovation, specific to processes as well as specific to software engineering itself. And most importantly, the fact that in the Philippines, our communication skills are very strong, especially when it comes to English as a language. So in the context of AI, that's very useful, especially as we think about things like prompt engineering and so on and so forth. So overall, let's just say I was even more optimistic coming out of the event about the future of AI in the Philippines.
Very optimistic indeed, but out of that event, the IBPAP did announce some projections. They're thinking revenues could hit 42 billion by 2026, 1.97 million employees by next year. That's still a pretty far number from the bull case for 2028. Did any of your peers and other executives say, it's time to, just settle for a base case rather than the bull case? Maybe it's time to go for a more realistic target?
Well, I didn't get a sense of that. I think there was, especially with the business leaders, there was definitely a sense of optimism and opportunity around artificial intelligence and not just the disruption, but the value that AI could deliver in the process in the IT-BPM sector.
All right.
That was my sense.
And Karthik, just very quickly, there was a lot of bullishness as well about the growth. When you look at the IT-BPM sector and you look closely, look at under the hood, everyone's very bullish about GCCs, or Global Capability Centers. Of course, we know these are wholly owned offshore or nearshore entities set up and owned by the multinationals. So instead of outsourcing, they actually do it in their own offshore or nearshore entities that they set up in other countries. So I wonder how optimistic you are maybe on GCCs, and if you could share with us some numbers about the landscape of GCCs in Manila. How much is its contribution to the overall pie or universe?
Well, I think with Philippines and the GCC construct, let me just take a step back first. Overall, I'm actually very optimistic about the growth in GCCs, especially as organizations try and build software and technology, which is a lot more core to them as opposed to context. So people are trying to build it themselves, and they're looking to set up these global capability centers across the world. And in terms of numbers, from what I understand, Philippines is right there at the top. It's maybe the number 2 right now in the world in terms of growth in GCC. I think the real opportunity for us from a GCC perspective is to move from traditional labor pools of GCCs to AI-led GCCs, where we can actually have humans and AI agents working together to deliver value for our clients. That, I think, is where the real opportunity is. And for example, with us in our business, I could say that our GCC business is doubling every year. And in Manila, it's actually going through the roof right now for us.
Wow.
Very recently, press release on one of the GCC announcements. But the real opportunity, like I said, would be for us to be able to bring AI agents and human labor together so that we can deliver a new level of productivity and value acceleration for our clients.
All right. Shifting gears a little bit now, I wonder from an outside looking in perspective, is the Philippine market looking a little bit more risky today on account of two things? First, on account of weather disturbances. Places that used to not be flooded are suddenly seeing flash floods. Local governments end up being extra careful, too careful sometimes, calling off work preemptively only to see the sunshine brightly later on in the day. So I understand, our call centers or BPO centers have business continuity plans. But when you've got so many, weather disturbances, that sounds very costly. So let's start with that. Are we looking a little bit more risky because of, these weather disturbances and how weak our disaster preparedness is?
I'm sorry for being the eternal optimist, but, weather disturbances are just a global phenomenon. Look, I live here in the US where we're dealing with weather disturbances of a wholly new order now. So while, there could be some concerns around weather disturbances and what that could do to our businesses, I do think about this as a global phenomenon. I, in fact, think that, the opportunity that we're seeing, especially around AI-driven agentic transformation of software engineering, in the context of GCCs and call centers, I think is massive. I don't believe that we need to have weather disturbances create any confusion in terms of the opportunity ahead of us.
And what about the other risk? All of this corruption noise in government infrastructure projects, is it starting to bother investors, your principals, the principals of these BPO companies?
Well, it's definitely a factor that we have to keep in mind. I don't think it can be ignored. But at the same time, I think the value of what can be delivered is so disruptive that if the government and the ecosystem continues to lean in, like what I saw at the IBPAP event, I don't see why we can't move the ball forward significantly.
All right. And what about Trump? How is Trump, for those who are wondering, how is Trump and Trump's policies, his tariffs, are affecting the BPM industry in general?
Well, to be honest, listen, I live here in the US. Our demand is, and I can talk from an Ascendion perspective, our demand, which we actually funnel to Philippines being our second largest market, has actually grown by about 45% year over year. While there was some initial sort of market hesitation in the early part of the year, I actually think a lot of that is stabilized, and we are quite excited about what's ahead of us.
All right. On that optimistic note, Karthik, thank you so much for joining us. Pleasure to speak with you.
Thank you so much.